An international uproar erupts after the implementation of President Donald Trump's executive order barring people from 7 Muslim-majority nations from entering the United States. A plan to return home for Gambian exiles who fled intimidation and threats during the reign of former President Yahya Jammeh. And a new mobile phone app to curb road accidents and improve emergency response is introduced in Cameroon. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Now, we begin tonight's broadcast with the deadly attack on a Canadian mosque that has left 6 people dead and wounded at least 8 others. Police say 2 gunmen burst into the Quebec City Islamic Cultural City late Sunday and opened fire on worshippers during evening prayers. Reaction from Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was swift, calling the assault, quote, a terrorist attack on Muslims. A police spokeswoman says 2 suspects have been arrested but did not give additional information about their identities or motive. The Premier of Quebec province says the safety of Canadian citizens is paramount. He also says security will be increased at mosques in Quebec City and Montreal.
No one is completely safe, and no community in this very small world today can be sure of its safety. This is why it's so important for governments to deploy all its energy and means to guarantee as much as possible that safety. This being said, we should not withdraw and become a closed society because of such a terrible event. On the contrary, as I indicated, we have to keep working together, striving towards an open, inclusive, peaceful society. The right response to this type of terrible events.
Well, the mosque attack came on the same weekend that Prime Minister Trudeau said Canada would welcome refugees after U.S. President Donald Trump suspended the U.S. refugee program and temporarily barred citizens from 7 Muslim-majority nations from entering the U.S. on grounds of national security. Trudeau also stressed that his country values diversity and religious tolerance. Well, more now on the international furor that has erupted from President Trump's executive actions aimed at preventing terrorists from entering the United States. As U.S. airport authorities began implementing action, several hundred people were detained at entry airports Saturday and Sunday, sparking a wave of protests in America and abroad. The executive order singling out 7 Muslim-majority countries, Iraq, Syria, Iran, Yemen, Sudan, Libya and Somalia, is baffling citizens in those countries. Viewers, Ladis Zahok reports.
Some passengers from the targeted countries were not allowed to board U.S.-bound flights. Syrian passport holder Nail Zain was barred from boarding a plane for Los Angeles at Istanbul's Ataturk airport on Sunday. His 2-day-old U.S. visa did not make a difference.
My wife and my son in United States. My son has American nationality, and we are waiting this moment since 2 years. Finally, when we got the chance, they prevent us as Syrian passport holder to travel.
Sudanese citizen Fatma Abul Qasim had to return to Sudan after airport authorities in Qatar prevented her from flying to the United States.
I think this decision is unjust to Sudanese citizens and Muslims. If America is to protect human rights, it should take our rights into consideration, too.
Lawful permanent U.S. residents or green card holders from the 7 countries are not included in the temporary ban. But those who happen to be overseas when the order was issued now fear they won't be able to return to the United States.
My niece has just come back from America for vacation. She was a translator with the Americans in Iraq, and she has been granted refuge in America. Now she is in an impasse as to whether she will be allowed to go back to America or be rejected under the pretexts of terrorism.
The Speaker of the Iranian parliament on Sunday called the travel ban racist.
Putting Iran's name on this list on the pretext of concerns over acts of terrorism sounds more like a joke. It is not a secret that Iran stood up to terrorists on its own in recent years, and some other countries joined it later on.
In Israel, Iran's longtime adversary, some protesters gathered outside the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv Sunday to voice their opposition to the executive order signed by President Trump. The White House has defended its implementation of the travel ban, saying that 325,000 travelers entered the United States on Saturday, and only 109 of them were temporarily detained. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, for more discussion on the U.S. travel ban, I'm joined by VOA reporter Mohammed Orland, who specializes in issues affecting Somalia and the Somali community. Mohammed, welcome once again.
Thank you, Vincent.
Now, this ban came over the weekend. You've spoken to a number of people. What has been their immediate reaction?
Well, the ban has sent shockwaves to the Somalis in United States and Somalia too. And we have been talking to different people here in America and different people in Europe and some in Somalia. And what they were telling you is that they are feeling very isolated in terms of the problem they have already been struggling with, like Al-Shabaab killing Somali civilians in Mogadishu. And then now they say they are targeted because of the same enemy they have in the war. And this has also affected not only Somalis who are already in the United States and in Mogadishu or in Somalia elsewhere, but it affected Somalis who have other nationalities, like Mo Farah, the British runner, whose kids live in Oregon. In Oregon, yeah, he is training in Ethiopia now. He couldn't come back. I saw his post on his Facebook, and he says, "Daddy will not be back."
Wow. Now, we know that one of the challenges for the Somalis is that we have a huge Somali community in America already, but some have relatives in Somalia and other parts of the world. What does this mean to those families?
Well, the thing they are very worried is that this kind of second citizen screening or second screening has been going on with the Somali community for a long time. If you talk to them, they say whenever they come here, even the green card holders, the Somali U.S. citizens, they are investigated differently. But what they are worrying is that they cannot reunite with their families, with their people whom they left back home. And that's the thing they most worried.
And talk about not being able to travel. We know that one of VOA correspondents was actually stuck in Nairobi. Is he on the way back now?
Yeah, he's one of our colleagues here who works here in this building too, Jamal Osman. He has been visiting his friends and family in Nairobi. He has been there for 2 weeks. And yesterday, when he tried to come back to his job, he was denied.
And he has a green card.
He's a green card. He's a green card holder.
Yeah.
Not only him, also a Somali woman who came from Nairobi yesterday was detained in Dulles Airport for about 20 hours with 2 kids. She's a Somali. Her husband just sponsored her and the kids. The kids are American citizens, and they could not immediately come to the United States. Later, they got attorneys, they got some people who are representing them, and they were released too, and then went to Minneapolis where they were heading to.
Well, quite understandable, the frustration, the confusion. Mohammed, thank you for your insights, and you will share with us some more of what you hear from the Somali community. Thanks a lot. Well, Mohammed Orland is a reporter with VOA's Somali service. Now, despite the uproar, the White House is defending President Donald Trump's executive order barring the entry of U.S. visa holders and others from 7 Muslim-majority countries. VOA's Michael Bowman reports federal judges have intervened to prevent deportations as protests sprung up in cities across America.
Donald Trump's most controversial action to date as president sparked turmoil and outrage at airports and action from the courts, giving civil rights groups an initial victory.
The message is simple. I mean, this is completely un-American. This is an unlawful order.
Protecting this nation and our people is the #1 priority of this president and our government.
The White House says it has but one goal:
to ensure that the people that we're letting into our country are coming here with peaceful purposes and not to do us harm. There are 46 other countries with Muslim populations that are not part of this.
Trump campaigned and won on a promise to rigorously scrutinize all who come to America.
It's not a Muslim ban, but we're totally prepared. It's working out very nicely.
The president has a lot of latitude to try to secure the country.
Trump's allies on Capitol Hill are treading cautiously amid the firestorm.
We need to be careful as we do this. I think we need to be careful. We don't have religious tests in this country.
Meanwhile, no parsing of words by Democrats.
What Trump is doing is harming our national security. It will incite attacks against us. ISIS is already using this ban as propaganda.
Reaction from overseas is decidedly negative.
So I hope President Trump will reconsider. I think it's discriminatory, it's counterproductive.
We are in shock because we are in need. Who would go? People who need asylum, tired people who suffer in this war. I do not understand this decision.
But the White House is not backing down.
What do we say to the family or to the individual who gets hurt or the family of someone who gets killed because we didn't take these steps?
Further court action is likely, with judges balancing a president's prerogative to shape immigration policy with U.S. anti-discrimination laws and the impact Trump's order could have on vulnerable individuals and families. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Well, now for more insight on President Trump's executive order, I'm joined by VOA senior analyst Jeffrey Young. Jeff, now please help our viewers understand some of the wider implications of this travel ban, because we know it's not just about Somalia, we mentioned earlier, but several other countries.
Interestingly, there's a number of Muslim-majority states that are not covered by this ban: Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, and Pakistan. When people talk about terrorism, the incidence of terrorism in some of these countries has been relatively high, yet, interestingly, they are not covered by this ban.
Some from those affected countries then want to know, why my country, why Somalia, why Sudan? You know, some of those asking us the same question.
The White House is explaining it this way. They said all 7 of these countries covered by the ban are countries that were previously identified by the Obama administration as countries where terror has originated.
Oh, wow. And we'll look deeper into that. Talk about there are 2 angles to this story. We saw judges stepping in to stop some of these deportations, or at least a refusal of people to enter. But also we have the order from the president. How are officials to handle this? Which is which?
Immigration, the people that you see at the airport when you land and get off the plane and have to go through screening, they belong to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security has issued an interesting statement in which it says it will both follow the orders and the specific details of the executive order that was issued by the Trump White House, at the same time that it will also address and obey the court orders that have been issued over the weekend, which in collection prevent the ejection of people from the United States, allow attorneys to access the people that are being detained, etc. So Homeland Security is saying in one sentence, we follow the executive order and we also obey the courts.
Some people have in the past said that when you're talking about suspicious characters, most times you want to look at the younger men. And now this ban affects everybody, a child, an old woman, an old man. What are you hearing from analysts? Is it necessarily helpful in terms of preventing or stopping terrorists from coming in?
We're hearing, interestingly, from members of the Republican Party, which Donald Trump, the President of the United States, is a part of. Senator John McCain and Senator Lindsey Graham have both said that the ban would only help the Islamic State and other militant groups recruit more terrorists. There is a narrative that is out in parts of the world that the United States is engaged in a war on Islam. And the 2 Republican senators and others are saying we have to be careful not to play into the hands of this narrative, because it only proves a point that the bad people want to make.
Well. We'll be watching. It's a very, very riveting kind of a discussion right now. We'll continue pursuing this. Jeff, thank you very much for helping us understand a very complex issue. Our viewer senior analyst Jeffrey Young. Well, African Union leaders have tapped Chadian Foreign Minister Moussa Faki Mohammed to the top post of the 54-nation body during summit meetings on Monday. Faki has served as Foreign Minister since 2008. Outgoing AU Commissioner South Africa's Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma stayed in the post an extra 6 months after leaders failed to agree on a candidate last July. Faki's main rival in the last round of voting was Kenyan Foreign Minister Amina Mohamed. Senegal had also fielded a candidate who was knocked out in an earlier round of voting. 3 of the AU's 4 major regions vied for the post, that is the South, the East, and the largely Francophone West. Dlamini Zuma said that the U.S. travel ban on 7 Muslim-majority countries signaled, and I quote here, turbulent times for the continent. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Now, coming up, Gambian exiles are returning home with mixed emotions. Stay with us. Welcome back. Countless Gambian journalists, activists, and opposition members fled threats and intimidation during former President Yahya Jammeh's 2 decades in power. Now, as Jammeh begins his life in exile, some of them are going back home. Ricky Shryock has the story of a Gambian radio reporter forced to live in exile in Senegal for the past 10 years.
Sheriff Bojang Jr. is finally home.
I'm on the Gambian soil for the first time in many years. It's unbelievable. It's surreal. And then you can see out there the immigration people who stopped my passport, excited, thanking me for, quote unquote, doing well to contribute to transition in the Gambia.
We head to the river to cross to the capital. The last time Bojang came to Banjul in 2007, he was arrested at the airport. Today, people recognize him from his work as a journalist in West Africa.
Now that I'm home, it's, I don't know, I'm sad now. My mood is changing every minute. 1 minute I'm excited, the next minute I'm upset, and the following minute is like, I don't feel like I'm home. It's like, I feel like a stranger in my own home. And I think it will take time before it sinks in.
And now, with new leadership for the first time in 22 years, the whole nation is adjusting.
If I have to define a few years ago what it meant to be a Gambian, I would have said being Gambian meant being tolerant, being too tolerant and too peaceful that you would allow dictatorship to happen. Today, what it means to be a Gambian, as far as I'm concerned, is being determined, determination, courage, optimism, strength, fighting together through thick and thin to change the status quo.
Bojang takes photos around town to post online. He wants other exiles to know it's finally safe to come home. Ricky Shryock for VOA News, Banjul.
Well, a dispute has broken out in Europe over the fate of Yazidi refugees. Portugal is offering to take in several hundred of the 2,500 Yazidis living in Greece, arguing their ancient community merits special protection. But Athens is rejecting the offer, worried that other countries might start cherry-picking refugees based on religion. Some 60,000 migrants are still stranded in Greece. Henry Ridgewell reports.
In 2014, Riyad Salo fled with thousands of other Yazidis as Islamic State fighters swept through their homeland in northern Iraq. 2,500 are now stranded in Greece, and most live in separate camps from other migrants. Salo says even now they are targeted.
Every time, every day, fighting. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria peoples, Iraq peoples, all the Islam peoples, all together come to Yazidi peoples fighting with him.
The Islamic State militants killed thousands of Yazidis and forced many of the women to become sex slaves. The UN describes it as genocide. Portugal has offered to take in several hundred of the Yazidi refugees from Greece, but Athens has refused the offer.
A government can't racially discriminate. We see with sympathy the Yazidis and all that they have gone through. But for the Greek government, the European Commission and the European Council, discrimination is reprehensible.
Ana Gomes, a Portuguese member of the European Parliament who has led her country's efforts to resettle Yazidis, says Greek concerns are misplaced.
É inaceitável que estejam.
These people have been victims of negative discrimination in terms of the resettlement process to go to other European countries, when they should have been having positive discrimination because of the barbarity they have suffered.
The aid group Ammar International cares for thousands of refugees, many of them Yazidis, across Iraq. The group's founder, British lawmaker Emma Nicholson, says the Yazidis deserve special recognition.
Because the Yazidis are the immigrants in greatest need. They're in greatest need because they are the ones who are being subjected to genocide. And they are the ones who women have been enslaved, who men are being exterminated, and who face total wipeout, complete wipeout.
A Yazidi cannot marry outside the faith, bringing added dangers as they are scattered from their homeland.
So the number of people who can marry is extremely limited. And the smaller the blocks of Yazidis become, the more the difficulties physically of this very close intermarrying will start to appear.
Europe is wrestling with the issue of whether Yazidi refugees should receive priority. Meanwhile, the EU's resettlement programme remains essentially frozen, and Greece struggles alone to care for 60,000 migrants. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. The creator of a new mobile phone app hopes to curb road accidents in Cameroon. We'll be right back.
I'm Milar Sega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents, a roundup of the world's top stories with analysis from our dedicated reporters. It's really a conversation the same way that you would bring a friend to your home and ask them what's going on. And our correspondents will do that and answer those questions through their own eyes.
That appears a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.
Welcome back. Now, Cameroon has some of the worst road safety records in West Africa, with accidents killing more people than malaria every year. A new mobile phone app improves road safety, and emergency response teams can now receive real-time alerts in the event of an accident. Here's VOA's Caroline Turner.
Someone is watching the driver as he makes his way through the streets of Cameroon's largest city, Douala.
The vehicle is registered on a mobile app known as Traveler, which uses sensor and GPS technology to monitor driving. The app was created by Ashiri Arnold G., a 27-year-old electrical engineering graduate who is also the startup CEO.
We're trying to provide a rapid response when an accident occurs, and we're trying to provide information concerning buses all over the national territory in an office. So we're saying that you can sit in an office and have information concerning a bus. I mean, you can just walk around and you get a notification about a certain car, be it high speed or an accident automatically.
The app is available to anyone and does not always need an internet connection. Any passenger with the app can enter the driver's name and registration of the vehicle they get into. Companies running buses, taxis, or trucks have shown a lot of interest in the app, which also logs information about speed, location, and cases of overcrowding in the bus or taxi, as reported by passengers. The app also alerts emergency services, hospitals, as well as the families of the passengers if an accident occurs. The Traveler app also keeps drivers in check to avoid accidents.
If your bus is driving at above 60 kilometers per hour, our application will notify you that, hello, driver, because there's a driver platform, so they can use the same application to control drivers by transport agencies. So the application will pop up a message that, look, this speed, you cannot bend a corner at this speed, it is dangerous.
Thousands die in road accidents in Cameroon each year. The World Health Organization says traffic accidents kill more than malaria. Marshall Manafred Simpkin runs a non-governmental organization that monitors road safety in the region. He says there needs to be stronger legislation to govern transport.
There's no institution that is responsible for managing issues related to road safety. So there's a lack of coordination. When it comes to the laws regarding road safety, the laws are not clear. For example, the law that requires passengers to wear seatbelts only applies to the people in the front seat. And the lack of clarity also applies to the laws regarding the limits of alcohol consumption.
While the Traveler app may help cure road accidents, Nji says there is little support for startup companies in Cameroon. He says financing and infrastructure were a big challenge as they struggled to get emergency information from hospitals.
There's also the problem of internet connectivity. When we made the application, it was supposed to be 100% real time. When we launched, we realized there's so many parts of Cameroon that never had internet. So we had to rework it to make it work as a black box if there's no internet.
Travelers can access the app for free, but companies must pay a fee to use the app in managing their transport fleets. The developers hope to generate more revenue from insurance companies and expansion into more countries across the continent. So far, the Travelers app has been downloaded 5,000 times and logs at least 148 users every day. Carolyn Turner, VOA News, Washington.
Smart homegrown solutions. Now, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings, Today Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC. That's Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words. Here's a story about journalists keeping secret the names of people who give them information.
Confidential. The ability to keep sources confidential is central to the practice of journalism, and it's very difficult for journalists to be able to do their job, which is upholding our democracy, ensuring that the government is transparent and accountable if they're not allowed to keep their sources confidential.
Confidential means to keep a secret. Sometimes journalists keep secret the names of their sources to prevent them from getting into trouble. Friends also keep information confidential.
Now, when you hear the word confidential, you will know what this news word means.
Find us and friend us on Facebook. VOA Learning English.